Ma'am, it's the police. Could you open the door, please?
I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not opening
I just
it.
need to speak with you. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be.
Come back with a warrant.
This woman's doorbell camera captured the moment a trusted officer became a predator and the evidence that would bring him down. Before we continue, let me take this opportunity to thank you so much for supporting our channel. Just choosing to watch our video means a lot to us. Before we go any further, tell us, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this is your first time here. Sienna Monroe was already asleep when the knocking started. It was just past midnight on a Thursday in March. She lived alone in a small rental house on the east side of town, worked long hours as a nanny for 2 families, and rarely had visitors, certainly not at this hour. She grabbed her phone and checked the doorbell camera app. A man in uniform stood under her porch light, police badge visible, patrol car parked at the curb. Her first thought was something terrible had happened, maybe to her mother, maybe an accident involving one of the families she worked for. She threw on a robe over her pajamas and opened the door with the chain still attached. "Can I help you, officer?" The man was white, mid-40s, with graying hair at the temples and a calm, practiced smile. His name tag read Cassidy. "Evening, ma'am. Sorry to disturb you so late. We've had reports of a prowler in the neighborhood. I'm doing door-to-door checks. Have you seen or heard anything unusual tonight?" Sienna shook her head. "No, nothing. I've been asleep." "Mind if I come in and check your perimeter? Just to make sure everything's secure. These things can escalate quickly." Something felt wrong, but he was a cop. The uniform, the badge, the patrol car, it all checked out, and she'd been raised to trust authority, to comply, to not make waves. She unlatched the chain. Officer Brennan Cassidy stepped inside and closed the door behind him. He didn't move toward the windows or the back door. He didn't check the locks. Instead, he turned to face her, and the smile faded. "You live here alone?" The air shifted. Sienna felt her stomach drop. "My boyfriend's upstairs," she lied quickly. Brennan's expression didn't change. "No, he's not." He'd been watching. He knew she lived alone. He knew her schedule. This wasn't a random check. This was planned. Sienna took a step back. "I think you should leave." "I don't think so." His voice was steady, almost bored, like he'd done this before. "You're going to stay calm. You're going to do what I say. And if you're smart, this'll be over quick." Her phone was on the coffee table, 10 feet away. She couldn't reach it, couldn't scream. The nearest neighbor was an elderly man who wouldn't hear. Couldn't fight. He was twice her size and armed. So she did the only thing she could think of. She memorized everything. His face, his badge number, the scratch on his left hand, the way he moved. Because if she survived this, she was going to make sure he paid. What Brennan Cassidy didn't know was that Sienna's doorbell camera was still recording, and it had captured everything: his face, his badge, his patrol car, and the exact time he entered her home. Brennan walked through her living room like he owned it. He wasn't rushed, wasn't nervous. He'd done this enough times to feel comfortable. "You're a pretty girl, Sienna. I've seen you around town. Always wondered what you looked like up close." She felt her skin crawl. He knew her name. How long had he been watching her? "Please," she said, keeping her voice as steady as possible. "You don't have to do this. I won't tell anyone you were here. Just leave." He laughed, a low, dismissive sound. "They all say that. But you know what? It doesn't matter if you tell. Who's going to believe you over me? I've been on the force for 22 years, decorated officer, family man. And you?" He looked her up and down. "You're just a nanny with no witnesses and no proof." But he was wrong about the proof. Sienna forced herself to stay calm. Panic wouldn't save her. Fighting would only make it worse. She thought about the camera outside, about the footage it was capturing, about how she just needed to survive long enough to use it. "I have money," she tried. "In my purse. Take whatever you want." "I'm not here for money." The assault lasted 18 minutes. Sienna kept her eyes on the clock on the wall. 18 minutes of violation, of terror, of her body no longer being her own. She didn't cry, didn't beg. She went somewhere else in her mind and waited for it to end. When it was over, Brennan adjusted his uniform and headed toward the door. He paused with his hand on the knob. "Remember what I said. Nobody's gonna believe you. And if you try to report this, I'll make your life hell. I know where you work. I know where your mother lives over on Cypress Street. I know everything about you." Then he was gone, back to his patrol car, back to his shift like nothing had happened. Sienna locked the door behind him and collapsed on the floor. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. She wanted to shower, to scrub away every trace of him, but she'd watched enough crime shows to know better. Evidence first, shower later. She opened the doorbell camera app and watched the footage. Clear as day. Brennan Cassidy walking up to her door, identifying himself, entering her home. The timestamp read 12:07 a.m. He didn't leave until 12:31 a.m. She had him. But having evidence and having the courage to use it were two different things. He was a cop. He had power, connections, and he'd just threatened her family. Sienna sat on her bathroom floor until sunrise, trying to decide if she was brave enough to fight back, trying to decide if justice was worth the risk, because reporting a police officer wasn't like reporting anyone else. It meant investigations, interrogations, her name in the news, her trauma on public display. It meant war. By 6 a.m., she'd made her decision. She downloaded the camera footage to 3 separate devices, sent copies to her best friend and her mother with instructions to go to the FBI if anything happened to her. Then she drove to the hospital for a rape kit. If Brennan Cassidy thought his badge made him untouchable, he was about to learn otherwise. The nurse at the hospital was kind. She'd done this before, seen women come in broken and terrified, carrying trauma they'd never asked for. "You're doing the right thing," she told Sienna as she collected evidence. "I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you are." Sienna wasn't sure she believed her. The right thing felt impossible. The right thing felt like throwing herself into a fire and hoping she didn't burn. After the hospital, she went to the police station. Not the one in her district. She couldn't risk running into Brennan or his friends. She drove 40 minutes to the next county and asked to speak to a detective. Detective Laura Chen met her in a private room. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of face that had seen too much and stopped being surprised by human cruelty years ago. "Tell me what happened," Chen said. Sienna told her everything. The midnight knock, the lies about a prowler, the assault, the threats, and then she showed her the doorbell footage. Chen watched it twice. Her expression hardened with each viewing. "Do you know Officer Cassidy personally?" asked Chen. "No, I'd never seen him before last night." "And you're certain about the timeline? The camera timestamp is accurate?" "Yes, I checked my phone records. I was on a call with my mom until 11:43 p.m. I fell asleep around midnight. He showed up 7 minutes later." Chen leaned back in her chair. "Sienna, I need to be honest with you. This is going to be hard. Prosecuting a police officer is never easy. His department will close ranks, his union will fight, and the media attention will be brutal. Are you prepared for that?" Sienna thought about the look on Brennan's face when he left, the confidence, the certainty that he'd get away with it. "He said nobody would believe me. He said I had no proof, but I do. And if I don't come forward, how many other women will he do this to?" Chen nodded slowly. "More than you think." She opened a file on her desk. Inside were 3 other reports, 3 other women, all describing similar incidents, late-night visits, abuse of authority, threats, but none of them had video evidence. None of them had pursued charges because they were too afraid. "We've had suspicions about Cassidy for 2 years, Chen admitted, but we couldn't make anything stick. He's careful. He chooses victims who are isolated, vulnerable, women who won't be believed or who are too scared to fight back. You're the first person who's come forward with concrete proof." Sienna felt sick. 2 years? How many women in 2 years? "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we build a case. I'm going to contact the FBI because this involves potential civil rights violations by a law enforcement officer.
We'll get a warrant for his phone records, his patrol logs, his GPS data. We'll interview the other victims again, now that we have corroborating evidence. And we'll arrest him. When? Soon, but I need you to be careful. Don't go home alone. Don't change your routine in any obvious way. If Cassidy realizes we're investigating, he might run or destroy evidence. Sienna left the station feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because she'd done it. She'd reported him. She'd started the process. Heavier because she knew this was just the beginning. Within 48 hours, the FBI opened an investigation. Brennan Cassidy's patrol car was seized, his locker was searched, his computer was examined, and what they found was worse than anyone imagined. Brennan Cassidy wasn't just a rapist, he was a serial creditor who'd weaponized his badge for over a decade. The FBI found folders on his personal computer, photographs of women, addresses, work schedules, license plate numbers. He'd been stalking potential victims for years, documenting their routines, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sienna's file was labeled SM March. She wasn't the first. She wasn't even close. Detective Chen called her 3 days after the initial report. We've identified 11 potential victims, women who filed complaints about inappropriate contact with Cassidy that were dismissed or buried by his department. We're reaching out to all of them. 11 women. 11 lives he'd invaded and destroyed. Within a week, 5 more victims came forward. Their stories were horrifyingly similar. Late-night welfare checks, claims of prowlers or suspicious activity, the same calm authority, the same threats afterward, the same assurance that nobody would believe them over a decorated officer. One woman, Jasmine, had reported him 4 years earlier. She'd gone to his precinct, told them everything, and was dismissed by his sergeant. They said she had a history of mental health issues, that she was unreliable, that Officer Cassidy was beyond reproach. She stopped fighting after that, buried the trauma, tried to move on. "I thought I was crazy," Jasmine told reporters after Brennan's arrest. "They made me feel like I imagined the whole thing, like I was the problem." Another victim, Nicole, had moved to a different state after her assault. She couldn't live in the same town as him, couldn't risk running into him at the grocery store or the gas station. She'd lost her job, her apartment, her entire life because of what he did. The community response was divided. Half the town couldn't believe that Officer Cassidy, the man who coached Little League, who volunteered at the community center, who had a wife and 3 kids, could be capable of such things. The other half wasn't surprised at all. They'd heard the whispers, seen the way he looked at women, noticed how certain complaints against him disappeared without explanation. But whispers weren't evidence. Suspicions weren't convictions. What Sienna had provided changed everything. The district attorney held a press conference announcing charges against Brennan Cassidy: 8 counts of rape, 3 counts of sexual assault, 13 counts of abuse of authority, multiple counts of stalking and intimidation. If convicted on all charges, he faced life in prison. Brennan's attorney released a statement calling the charges a witch hunt and insisting his client was innocent, said the encounters were consensual, that the women were lying for attention or money. But then the doorbell footage leaked online. Someone in the prosecutor's office sent it to the media, and suddenly the whole world could see exactly what happened. They could see Brennan lying to Sienna about a prowler, see him enter her home under false pretenses, see the timestamp proving he was inside for 24 minutes with no legitimate reason. The video went viral, millions of views in 48 hours. People were outraged. How many other cops were doing this? How many other victims were out there, too afraid to speak up? Sienna's life became chaos. Reporters camped outside her house. Strangers recognized her at the grocery store. Some people called her brave. Others called her a liar, and worse. She had to quit both her nanny jobs because the families didn't want the media attention. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't go anywhere without looking over her shoulder. But she didn't back down.
because every time she thought about giving up, she remembered the other women, the ones who'd tried to report him and were silenced, the ones who'd buried their trauma because nobody would listen. She was their voice now, and she wasn't going to let them down. The trial was set for September, 6 months away. 6 months of waiting, of reliving the worst night of her life, of preparing to face him again in a courtroom. But this time, she wouldn't be alone. The courtroom was packed. Victims, supporters, media, and curious onlookers filled every seat. Sienna sat in the front row, flanked by Detective Chen and a victim advocate. Brennan Cassidy sat at the defense table in a suit, clean-shaven, looking nothing like the predator who'd invaded her home. His attorney had coached him well. Looked sympathetic, looked like a family man, looked like someone the jury could relate to. But the evidence didn't lie. The prosecution presented the doorbell footage first. The jury watched in silence as Brennan lied his way into Sienna's home, watched the timestamp, saw him emerge 24 minutes later adjusting his uniform. Then came the GPS data from his patrol car. He'd been parked outside Sienna's house for 40 minutes before knocking, watching, waiting. His phone records showed searches for her social media, her address, her employer information. He'd been planning this for weeks. One by one, the other victims took the stand. Jasmine described her assault 4 years earlier. Nicole talked about fleeing the state. A woman named Kira, who'd never reported because she was undocumented and feared deportation, testified through tears. Each story was different in details, but identical in pattern. Brennan used his badge as a weapon, used fear and authority to silence them, used the system to protect himself. When it was Sienna's turn, she walked to the stand with her head high. She'd practiced this moment for months, prepared herself to face him. The prosecutor asked her to describe the night of March 16th. Sienna told her story, calmly, clearly, without embellishment or emotion, just facts, just truth. "He told me nobody would believe me," she said, looking directly at Brennan. "He said his badge made him untouchable, but he was wrong." Brennan's attorney tried to tear her apart during cross-examination, suggested she'd invited him in, implied she was lying for money or attention, asked why she didn't scream or fight back. Sienna answered every question with the same steady composure. "I survived the only way I could, and then I made sure there was evidence to hold him accountable." The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Some people cheered, others wept. Sienna felt her legs give out, and Detective Chen caught her arm. "You did it. You stopped him." At sentencing 2 weeks later, the judge addressed Brennan directly. "You took an oath to protect and serve. Instead, you used your position of trust to terrorize vulnerable women. You betrayed your badge, your community, and every officer who serves honorably. The damage you've caused is immeasurable." 28 years in prison. No parole eligibility for 20. Brennan showed no emotion as the bailiff led him away. But Sienna saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Fear. Because now he was the powerless one. Now he was the victim of a system he couldn't control. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Sienna made a brief statement. "I didn't come forward because I'm special or brave. I came forward because I had evidence and a choice. But there are countless women who don't have video footage or physical evidence, who are dismissed and disbelieved. This case isn't just about Brennan Cassidy. It's about a system that protects predators in uniform and silences survivors. We have to do better." Healing didn't happen overnight. Sienna still had nightmares, still felt anxious when she saw police cars, still carried trauma she'd never asked for. But she also felt something else. Pride, strength, power. She'd looked her rapist in the eye and watched justice be served. She'd given other victims their voices back. She'd proven that badges don't grant immunity and that predators can be stopped.
6 months after the sentencing, Sienna started a nonprofit for survivors of assault by law enforcement. She partnered with Detective Chen to train officers on handling these cases with care and seriousness. She turned her worst nightmare into purpose. So here's the question. Do you think 28 years is enough? What would you have done in Sienna's position? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. These are the stories that need to be told, the ones about regular people doing extraordinary things when the world tries to silence them. Thanks for watching.